Baarda here with Farming Smarter. We're here at our inter-row cover crop trial with sugar beets. It's the end of August, August 29th. So we seeded some inter-row crops kind of late June, maybe early June this year after the last herbicide application, and we've been monitoring them throughout the season. And the idea here is we're trying to get as much cover crop established between the rows before harvest. Ideally, that can protect against any wind erosion in the fall after harvest. So we're still a month, maybe 6 weeks away from harvest, depending on kind of how things go. So yeah, we've been watching it throughout the season. We've been pretty happy with the progress on some of these, some of the seed varieties that we had put in. But now that we're sort of getting in a little later in the season, we're getting some really dense canopy closure. We're starting to see some of those cover crops getting choked off a little bit. So let's go take a look and see what we've been seeing here. I'll start here. This first group of plots here is sort of further to the edge. There's a little less moisture. The beet crop isn't as robust, and because of that, we're seeing better success with some of our cover crops. So we've got fall rye here, which is looking actually pretty decent. You know, if again, you're seeing these sugar beets aren't as robust, but this is a decent amount of fall rye. You know, we'll top the beets. There'll be some plant matter, some root matter remaining there. So as far as that's going to do for erosion, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm happy to have some decent plant matter there, and hopefully it stays after harvest. So most of our cereals have been pretty similar here. Our winter wheat, you know, you can see some are even heading out. Again, this is a spot where we're not getting canopy closure because the beets aren't growing as well. So the cover crop's doing quite good. I can even see it down the rows here. Another cereal, so we've got spring barley, same thing. We're heading out a little bit, definitely some bug damage here. But we've got something established that may sort of stay in place after harvest. As far as growth and plant matter, the corn actually has been doing the best. But I don't know if I can see it quite as well today, but we've definitely seen a bit of a discoloration on the sugar beets, like lighter leaves a little bit. So we're wondering about competition for nutrients between this cover crop, the grain corn, and the sugar beets. I mean, obviously corn takes a lot of energy. If this corn was planted away from the sugar beets, it'd be, you know, 4 or 5 feet tall kind of by now. So you can definitely see there's that competitive effect between the main crop, the sugar beets, and the cover crop, the corn. So corn may not be the best option as far as wind protection, but it's kind of a nice piece because it is Roundup ready, so it's a nice option. Potentially could be seeded a little bit earlier and not die during the in-season herbicide application. So we're getting into some of the lentils. So here's our winter lentils. So again, close here, we're seeing quite a bit coming through. Again, this is a series of plots where the sugar beets aren't growing as well. So those winter lentils actually have quite a bit of plant matter there. So they may be in place. Same with the winter peas. And then this last one, this is the Sudan grass. And you can see a few bits here. So this is the Sudan grass here. Yeah, this is sort of a warm late season crop. Again, you can tell it's got some nutrient deficiency. You're kind of getting purpling on the ends there, but it is established. It's breached the canopy, so it will continue to receive light. So maybe perhaps keep growing, keep developing root matter over the next month or so. But now we'll move into some of the plots that are a little more central in the field. They are getting more heat. They are getting more water. Like I can see the canopy closure is almost complete. In fact, the sugar beet leaves are, you know, they're layered over top of one another. So very little heat, very little light is getting through. So if I look at the fall rye in these, you know, we're getting to, you know, a lot of it is turning into skeletons. And I wonder, you know, a month from now, how much of this will even remain at that point. So a pretty competitive crop, but really these sugar beets are out competing it, given that it was seeded, you know, a month later, 6 weeks after the sugar beets were. So this is the challenge that we're sort of coming into, where the sugar beets are really growing quite well. Our cover crops just aren't surviving, and we're wondering about, you know, how we kind of move forward with this. Do we seed a little earlier next year? And what are the effects of that going to be on the sugar beet growth and yeah, in terms of both yield and quality. So, sorry, what's this one? Winter lentils, barley. So yeah, maybe I'll look at a pulse like this. These winter lentils as well. And we get in there. So they're here, they are around, but they're not anywhere near as productive as they were where the sugar beets were growing a little less intensely. So, oops. Winter peas. Just want to see that. So the Sudan grass. Oh yeah, we're seeing some where the sugar beets aren't growing as much. Right? There's a few plants here and there. They are there, but you know, they're not growing nearly as aggressively. You know, here, this is a good spot. So now here you're seeing as we pull a lot of leaf matter from the sugar beets to the side, you can see how, you know, how much the Sudan grass is really struggling. And that's the real challenge with this approach is, you know, can we get enough growth out of the cover crop early enough that we can continue to reach sunlight and get warmth, but not compete with sugar beets too much. And the corn's the crop that's sort of been the most, seen the most growth. But you can see even from here, you know, they're sort of starving for nutrients. We're kind of getting purpling on the edges. They're starving for sunlight, light colored. And again, it's a little bit tough with the sunlight, but I feel like the sugar beets are also struggling as well because the corn is sort of robbing nutrients from them. So that's our challenge is, you know, how do we find that balance between feeding the cover crop and feeding the sugar beets, and, you know, what's the value of each piece to this puzzle? We certainly want to mitigate erosion as much as possible, but we also have a main crop that sort of needs to be successful and robust and profitable. So our plan for the next month or so is late in the season, you know, before harvest, we'll come in, we'll get actual measurements of how much each of these cover crops have grown and the sugar beets as well. So we know, yeah, which of these crops has been more successful in terms of biomass. And then after harvest, we'll come back and monitor things sort of until freeze up and see, you know, what had the most above ground biomass and the best potential for protecting against erosion. So we'll be back here in about a month, I think, late September, to kind of do some of those evaluations, and yeah, we'll keep you posted throughout the fall here.